Hey, this is Scott, the founder of ZooK Live Foods, and I'm here with my beautiful wife and my two sons, Jacob and Noah. Here they are.
Wave, Jacob.
That's Jacob. That little one is Noah. And that, of course, is Kathy. Say hi, Kathy. And we're going to show you some pretty cool stuff today. This is going to be the first installment of Ferment This, where I'm going to be teaching you how to ferment just about anything that grows out of your garden or that you find in a supermarket that's a vegetable. And basically what we'll be doing is we'll be showing you how to preserve these foods in the most natural and healthy way, so that what you'll be doing is you'll be preserving them raw so that they all have their own natural enzymes, and in addition to that they will also be probiotics, so they're going to be great for you. All you'll have to do is store them in the refrigerator and you've got fast food that is just insanely healthy. So what we're going to be doing today is, this is my special Daikon mix. So this is a very easy ferment. It's really not the first that you may do, but the first that you probably would do is sauerkraut. Sauerkraut is kind of the beginner fermentation, but many of you may have already done sauerkraut, and I will be doing sauerkraut very soon, just in case you haven't done it. But this is a really, really neat recipe that my family makes all the time. My son Jacob absolutely loves it. So here are the things that we will need today for the fermentation. In the back is a mason jar. Right next, that's where the fermentation will be taking place and the storage will be taking place. Back is Celtic sea salt. That's the salt that we use to do our fermentations here at ZooK. We've got two spices, allspice and coriander seed. The Daikon, a potato masher to mash the vegetables up to make them perfect for fermentation, a knife, and a mandolin knife to help you with the slicing for the products. So anyway, now that we see what we need, and by the way, the Daikon that we'll be using, you'll use around between 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds of Daikon for this recipe. Now before we actually get to fermenting, there's a big thing that we have to remember. What we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that the lactobacilli win. Because when we put this all together in the mason jar and everything, there's going to be a war going on, and it's going to be basically lactobacilli versus other bacteria, most of whom you really don't want taking over. Either they're bacteria that rot stuff, or they're actually bad bacteria that will make you sick, as well as molds. And molds are ever present no matter where you are. You don't want them to have any part of this process. So you want the lactobacilli to win, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be making the field as easy for the lactobacilli to win as possible, because if the lactobacilli win, they turn the starches and sugars into lactic acid. That preserves the food and it turns it into probiotics. If that doesn't work, you don't want to eat it. So anyway, the main way that we're going to be doing this is in a few things. First off, we'll be putting a good deal of salt into the product. The salt holds down the bad bacteria, and lactobacilli can deal in a salt area. We'll also be doing it in a mason jar. The mason jar makes sure that this is an anaerobic process. Lactobacilli can easily deal in anaerobic, which means there's no air, whereas a lot of other bacteria need the air so that they can do a good job of propagating. We don't want them to propagate, so therefore we want it to be anaerobic. In addition, what we'll be doing is we'll actually be mashing the product some to make it easier for the lactobacilli to get in and start eating it, and therefore start making the lactic acid. Once the lactic acid starts being made, and there's enough of it to make it fairly acidic, it'll kill everything else, so you don't have to worry about that. But you need to have that whole thing start, and therefore that's everything that we're shooting for. So let's get to the actual fermentation. This is a Daikon. Basically, it's a giant radish. When it comes out of the ground, it's about this long. This is simply just a piece of it. Sometimes you can find it in the store, and it looks like kind of like a giant white sword. Right now we've just got a piece of it, but it tastes good. You may have seen this before in a lot of Japanese and Chinese restaurants. They turn it into almost like this cellophane thing that you eat alongside sushi or whatever the meal is. But here we're going to turn it into a really, really, really tasty dish. What I'm using here is called a mandolin knife. It's just basically a blade and a board. You can also do this with a regular knife, but a mandolin takes no time. So basically all we do is we just run the Daikon over the mandolin.
About what size do you want the pieces to be?
Can you pick up that thickness there? That's what, about the thickness of maybe a quarter. So you don't really want it any thinner than that, and you can make it thicker. Okay. So we keep slicing the Daikon until we've got, like I said, about a pound to a pound and a half, 2 pounds, somewhere in there. What we want to do now that we've got the Daikon all sliced up into medallions is julienne it, which is really easy since the mandolin has done most of the work for us in making it into the medallions. Basically, I just take a knife, I take a pile of the Daikon, and then I cut down. Okay, now that we've got all our Daikon into our bowl, doesn't look like much right now, but boy is that going to get tasty. The next thing that we want to do is we want to add the salt to it. What salt does from a fermentation standpoint is it holds down the bacteria that you do not want here in the ferment. However, what it also does, if you add it early into the cutting, whether this is for making daikon or sauerkraut or really any ferment that you want to mash just a little bit, it leaches the water out and it makes the mashing tremendously easier. Generally speaking, it takes around at least 10 minutes to get some good water out of it. However, it's a really, really, really important step, because otherwise you're going to be using a lot of energy to beat the daikon, and it's going to take quite a while for you to do this. So basically, for 1 to 2 mason jars, I use about a teaspoon of Celtic sea salt. Just put it on there. Mix it all up. And we're going to wait, and we'll be back to you in about 10 minutes.